So what do you have for me today?
So, when you were little, who was your best friend?
I don't remember having a best friend in Norfolk, okay? But when I had a best friend in Jackson Heights, and that was Sheila Carrick. Sheila Carrick. We went to school together, walked to school together, played afterwards. There were two other gals that also were friends, Leela Wolofsky and Nina Scardino. But Sheila was really my best friend. As a matter of fact, when we got into high school, we both wanted to be in the band, and we both wanted to play the clarinet. But since there were plenty of clarinetists, there were two other instruments that really needed people. One was the oboe, and the other one was the tuba. So I decided that I would play the oboe, and Sheila would play the tuba. And so we did that. And then, of course, I told you about I would always get scared if I had to play a solo, and thank goodness
Yeah.
Rudy was there to bail me out. But then Sheila and I also planned to go to the same college together. And we applied to the University of Vermont and got in, and we went up there. But then Sheila and I started parting ways. She was going out with somebody at that time, and we really were not friends anymore. These things happen. You grow up, you go your different ways. So therefore, I did not have. She was not my best friend anymore.
Sure. How old were you when you became friends with her?
I, I would say it maybe about 9 years old, 9 or 10. When we moved to Jackson Heights.
Okay.
Unfortunately, her parents were alcoholics, and it was very sad because her father, lawyer, was a very smart man, and her mother I remember her mother was a twin, and the mother came from North Dakota, and mother went to college. In those days, very few women went to college, and so mother was a smart lady also, but because of the father's drinking, the mother would keep him company and would accompany him to the bars that he would go to, and she became an alcoholic as well.
Hmm.
So Sheila had really a very sad
Yeah.
upbringing.
Did your parents drink when you were young?
No way,
Yeah.
no way. Maybe a little sip of Manischewitz at Passover, but no, they did
No.
not. No,
And
they
did your grandfather?
Wait a minute, my father did scotch, but you can't say he was a drinker. You
Yeah.
can't say that. Maybe he would have one scotch. And he also did like bourbon. But then again, he wouldn't have it every day. My grandfather loved seltzer,
Hmm.
seltzer
Yeah.
water. In
Yeah.
those the old fashioned seltzer bottles where you would press the thing and out came the seltzer.
Yeah. Yeah.
He likes seltzer. I cannot remember him drinking hard liquor
Yeah.
or even drinking wine.
Yeah.
Probably at Passover, I would say he would have a little glass of wine. But
Yeah.
it's something I just don't associate him with, or any of my family, with liquor.
Yeah. So when you were little, you had said before you did want to be an actress?
Oh, but that was sure. That
Yeah.
we just played around. Or I
Yeah.
wanted to be a dancer, and I wanted to be an artist, and I wanted to be
Yeah.
I love tap dancing or ballerina, all that kind of stuff. But never anything really serious that drove me to want to pursue that.
And how old were you when Michael was born?
I was 7.
And were you excited to get a sibling?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, was. I was. He was very cute, really very adorable little boy. Yeah.
And did,
But I don't really remember. I didn't take care of him, so I didn't. I was busy with my friends and everything like that. But he was very cute. Yes.
yeah. So would he want to play with you like once he got to be 5 or 6?
Remember,
Yeah.
I don't remember him playing with me. I don't remember in being annoying like little brothers usually are.
Yeah.
That part of my life, I just don't remember. I
Yeah.
don't remember it.
Sure. All right. And so tell me again about your middle school and then your high school.
The middle school was very rough. I walked to middle school. I believe it was junior high school 141. And there were very tough kids at that school. And I don't remember any of the teachers. It's like I remember the number of the school, but I don't remember any of the classes. And then I went on to high school with another very tough neighborhood. But I had to take a bus to get there. I think I could also take the subway, but I took a bus most of the time. But I didn't really come in contact with any of the tough kids because they had different classes, like advanced placement class, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And unfortunately, the tough kids were not in the upper
Right.
echelon. I
Yeah.
happened to have been there in advanced placement class. So my friends were there, were in that group.
Yeah.
But I know it was tough because I would walk out of the school. I don't remember any blacks being there at school. I remember Irish, Italian. They were very tough. They were very rough. But I do remember I was friendly with the Greek girls. Stina and Mary Lenakis were my friends. And also there were a lot of Greeks and Armenians in that upper placement. Not that many Jews. I don't know where the Jews were. Where did they go? There were a few. I wasn't particularly friendly with them. It was a mixed neighborhood. So it was not a ghetto, like a Jewish ghetto, like many places in Brooklyn and the Bronx were.
Yeah.
So I grew, and you could see by the names of my best friends there, Carrick, Irish name, Scardino, Italian,
Yeah.
and she was Jewish, of course.
Yeah.
But so that was the high school years. They went by fast, and I got a good education. But as I say, junior high school really, I remember going it, and I remember it being uncomfortable. And I guess maybe I was unhappy there. I probably was, but it didn't affect me.
Yeah.
It didn't affect my life at all.
Did you ever get in a fight
No.
when you were little?
Wait, I never got into a fight, but it was in high school. I remember my grandfather had given me a watch I think it was because of a graduation from junior high school. And I loved that watch. It meant a lot to me. It was from my grandfather. And there was a very rough girl in high school. And my cubbyhole was next to hers in gym locker. And I remember I took off my watch because we were going to the gym, put it in the locker. I didn't know that anybody was looking, and then closed the door. And then when the class finished gym, I opened the locker door and I was looking for my watch, and it wasn't there. And I said, "Did anybody see my watch?" And that kind of thing. No, nobody saw it. Nobody saw it. And I didn't know what to do. I was so afraid. I was so afraid to tell my grandfather that I had lost the watch. But then a few days later, I saw the girl that had a locker next to me. And I looked at her wrist. She was wearing my watch.
Oh, boy. Wow.
And it was on the street, on Steinway Street. And she was a big girl. She was like a monster. And I said, "You've got my watch." And she said, "I do not." And I started hitting. But people broke us apart. She would have mushed me, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And they had these phone booths around. So I ran to the phone booth and I called my Uncle Eddie. I knew his number. He was a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I screaming, crying and everything. And I said, because I wanted him to sue her. So I didn't call my parents, but I called my uncle. And he tried to calm me down. And he said, she's going to do away with it, watch, and you'll never find it. And sure enough, I never found it on her again.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you make it through middle school and you get into high school
Cool.
and
High
you're
school.
playing the
I got
oboe.
very good marks on my region, got 99 on my English region. 99. Yep. What happened to that extra one? Yeah. Yeah. I did okay on the French region. Math, I just about passed. Just about passed the math. But I did pass it. In those days, you had regions and you had to take those tests. And so it was pretty good. It was a good average, whatever it was. I don't even know.
Yeah. So your entire high school was post World War II, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
the war had ended.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the war had ended.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But the Korean War started up right around.
I It did, but it was not the war the way World War II was.
Yeah.
I don't remember getting involved in anything with the Korean War or the Vietnam War. I didn't march. I wasn't against it, wasn't for it. I mean, World War II was the defining war for me.
Yeah.
So I can't even tell you much about the Korean War.
Yeah. So you're in high school band, you're playing the oboe, you're supposed to you had a solo for Bolero.
It was a big hit. Yes. It was one of, I can't remember if it was the Bolero or not. Yes, it was the Bolero.
Yeah.
It was just a small, just an opening.
Yeah.
Very small. Very small. I still couldn't do it. I still couldn't do it. Rudy had to do it for me.
Yeah. So tell me that story. So ahead of the concert, you talked to this young boy.
Well, I talked to my boyfriend Rudy, who played the flute. He was a wonderful flautist. And I said, I get really nervous when I have that solo. So I'll pick you, and if I need you, you'll just do it for me. And I picked him, and he did it for me. And the conductor couldn't believe it. He thought he was hearing something because he was not hearing the oboe; he was hearing the flute, and he really looked shocked. That was funny, except I didn't continue with the oboe after that. After I left college, after I left high school, I didn't continue.
So he was your boyfriend.
But when I say boyfriend, it wasn't really hot and heavy kind
Yeah.
of thing. Absolutely not.
Did you go on dates?
No, I never went out with him. I don't know
Okay.
what I did. But in other words, we were just really good friends in college, in high school, and now really that was all.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember going out with him. We hung around with other people in high school, that kind of thing, but not
Yeah.
not dating, not dating. No.
And he was your first kiss?
Yes,
Yeah. What do you remember about that?
it's very awkward.
Did you participate in any sports in high school?
Not really. Not really. I was not on a sports team at all. And I don't remember even doing any extracurricular things. I was very studious and I was anxious to get home. I didn't want to go home after dark. And I would go home and I would do my homework. I was really maybe a nerdy kid in that I didn't, as I say, I didn't partake in any of the after school activities.
Yeah. And you wanted to get home before dark because of the rough neighborhoods that you had?
Oh, yeah, because I just didn't want to be out after dark.
Yeah.
Wanted to. My neighborhood where we lived was not rough and tough, but it was just getting to my neighborhood that I didn't want to have to subject myself
Yeah.
to a bus and the subway and all that kind of stuff. that easily. He was really, I think he had low IQ, and whether it happened, my mother claims it was a forceps delivery, and it might have happened then. But at any rate, he was really not up to working on his age level.
Mm-hmm.
They would have been able to handle that much better today, whether they had all kinds of names for it. We don't know what it was, just that we knew that his IQ was not a good one. He did go away to a school for special kids that had special needs, and so he was not around that much, and it was very hard for my mother. She really felt horrible not having him there. And it was hard for him because I don't think it was really the best kind of school. It wasn't a school for delinquent children, it was a school for children that had learning disabilities. I think it was called the Anderson School in Rhinebeck, New York.
And how long would he stay there?
You could visit, but he was there for a year or two.
Yeah. And so you and your mother and father would go visit?
Yeah.
Michael? Yeah.
Always difficult. Always difficult to leave.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to be there either. Yeah, he didn't want to. So he didn't have much, there was not much give and take with him growing up.
Yeah.
But a sweetheart, such a gentle soul, and so good, and just a wonderful boy.
So did the school district, who said that he had to go to that?
My parents had taken it to several people, and they suggested this school for him. And also he could learn a trade because he was not going to go to college. So the thing is, to learn a trade for a young boy like this was really the best thing. And so when he was up there, I think that they started him in learning how to bake, like baking of bread, things like that. But that didn't work out too well. I came home, we had a neighbor, Mr. Eckendall, wonderful guy, who worked at the airport at LaGuardia, and he was an executive there. And he lived right next door to us. He had great kids, great wife. He was a great guy. And he got Michael a job at the airport, at LaGuardia Airport, cleaning. He cleaned the rooms, cleaned bathrooms, cleaned everything. And Michael made friends there. And he was really quite content. You could have a conversation with Michael, but it was limited at times. And then, as a matter of fact, he met Marie and his wife, his future wife.
That's
right. Yeah. And I think she was working at the airport. No, she was a bank teller. I think they were fixed up. That's what it was.
Okay.
And then eventually they got married. And he went to the war. He was in the Vietnam War.
He was. Okay.
Yes, he was drafted. And I do think that my mother had her first heart attack when he was drafted, because she thought for sure he would never be able to manage whatever he had to do there. But she lived to be 92, so she lived after that. But it was a very rough time for the Vietnam War.
So you graduate. You and your friend had applied to University of Vermont.
Right. Yes, I got accepted.
Yep.
And I had applied to two other schools. I think it was Alfred University. I applied there, and I applied also to St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York. I got into all three. But Sheila and I decided that we really wanted to go to Vermont. So we went up to the University of Vermont. Right.
And
that
were you excited?
Very excited.
Yeah.
Very excited. And it was such a beautiful school then. It was very small. I think only 300 students. Could that be 300 or 3,000? Maybe it must be 3,000. Very small, typical New England school with the village green And Sheila and I were not in the same dorm. So that might have been the start of she had got another group of friends.
Yeah.
So I was in the dorm and I was in a room with four of the gals. So there were five gals in one room. And we lived in a place called Old Mill. And that was a reconverted mill. And they made it into dorms. So I remember we had the doors that you have in the bar and grill, the swinging doors.
Yeah.
We didn't have a regular door that you could close. So we said, everybody else could hear, vice versa. But as I said, I was like a nerd in high school. I really didn't date as such. Suddenly, I became very popular. Very popular. I don't know what ever happened. I had more boyfriends than I could. I'm not bragging. I'm not bragging. It's just I'm showing you
Yeah.
from nerd to being very popular.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, really. But at any rate, I can't even tell you all the boyfriends that I had, all the dances and stuff like that. And my grades suffered. Because at that point, I was no longer studious. I was too busy dating this one and that one and everything. I didn't do too well in college.
Now, and why did you want to go to University of Vermont?
It was a small New England school. Don't forget,
Yeah.
I'd come from Queens, had gone to a very tough junior high school in an industrial area. I wanted what the movies had, what Andy Hardy and Ben had, and lots of greenery and lots of happiness and people jumping around and having a great old time and not being afraid to go on the subway or because there was no subway there.
Yeah.
Not being afraid, just and being with fresh air. It was so beautiful. It was like a dream come true.
That's great.
I have no idea how my parents paid for it, but and that's a story.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so I went up there, and the first year I was in with five gals in the dorm, and then the second year I transferred to another dorm. Actually that was just a freshman dorm anyhow. Transferred to another dorm, and it called Redstone, and Redstone was about a mile from the campus, from the green, where a lot of the courses took place, a lot of the classes took place. And I remember that Vermont is very cold in the wintertime, and we were not allowed to wear slacks in those years. You could only wear skirts. So you would have to bundle up and you would have to have thick socks on because Redstone campus was a mile from where the classes were. And we'd have to walk it. No one was there to protect me. We all had to walk. In those days, we did a lot of walking.
Yeah.
Not so much getting into a car or getting onto a bicycle. It was very different. I wasn't doing well in school because I was so busy dating, going out. And I thought, and a lot of people, a lot of friends that I had there were transferring. I loved it, but they all wanted to get out, go to different schools and things like that. So I thought, well, okay, they're doing it, I'll do it too. But it was crazy because where was I going to go? But at any rate, I left school. I left my dream school. I just left. So I left school after 2 years of college. And I came home and I said, I will continue my college education. So I thought, I'm home and I'll go to Queens College. But I have to go at night because money was a little scarce in our household. So I worked during the day. I worked at the airport. The airport was close to where I lived. And I worked there and I took school kids on tour of the airport. And then when I wasn't doing that, I sold candy and little toy airplanes there in the terminal. It was in the terminal, but it was really very difficult going to school and working at the same time. It was at night, and I had to make up classes, and I had to take calculus. I had to take botany. So after a year, I gave that up.
Okay.
I did for a very short time go to modeling school to become a model. I had these crazy ideas. My mother was going nuts with me.
Yeah.
And of course, I wanted to move out, and I didn't have any money to move out. So I stayed in. I stayed home with my mother and father. And then that didn't work out.
Yeah.
You had to get a photographer to take pictures of you. I didn't have the money to do that. I mean, the modeling school I don't think it was very much. Then I got the bright idea, I'll become a secretary. So there was a very well-known secretarial school called Katherine Gibbs. And they called Katie Gibbs. And so that's where I went. And that was an almost year course, and it was very tough. Not only did you learn typing and stenography, and they were very strict. It was all you had to go just to the dotted line and all that. But they had English classes, they had classes on how to conduct yourself in certain situations, in business situations. It was a very good school for business. And I met a lifelong friend there. Her name at that time was Benita Herman. If I cry now, it's just because what's happened to her is she just has Alzheimer's now.
Wow.
And she was so beautiful and so vivacious and just such a fabulous girl, just wonderful. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how we met. We were both, you had to interview. You had to interview for the school also. So with the two of us, we didn't know each other, so we were just sitting in the office. And she said, hey, she whispered to me, hey, are you Jewish? I looked at her. I said, yeah, why? She said, we're the only ones here. They're a bunch of guys. What are we doing here? In those days, she had blonde hair, and she had a very large nose. She had a big nose. She always had a beautiful figure. She was just stunning to look at. So anyhow, we really became friends. She was very popular. Everybody liked her. And Katie Gibbs, there was a dress code that you had to adhere to. And the dress code was a hat every day, gloves every day, stockings, shoes with a little bit of a heel, no see-through blouses, a suit, skirt, jacket, no hoop earrings. In those days, hoop also was very popular. Earrings, but never hoop. No long nail. When I tell you, Benita Herman never wore stockings, never wore shoes with a heel, never wore a hat, only wore earrings, and also had the longest nails you'd ever see. And they would get caught in between the keys of the typewriter. She was a scream. She did everything she wasn't supposed to.
Your decision to leave your dream school, in retrospect, did you regret it like a year later? Do you regret it now?
I should have stayed. Yeah. I should have stayed, got my degree, and then still had to figure out what I was going to do with myself.
Yeah. And were your parents supportive of your decision to come back home, or where were they with it?
I think that they probably were rather happy because it cost a lot of money.
So, Reuben, what was Reuben doing at this point?
Reuben really, he lost his father when he was 12 years old, okay? And he finished high school, but he had to work very hard to try to support his family. He was, he was the oldest man, the oldest boy. So he really never was trained for anything. He had a good personality. He drove he drove a taxi for a while. Not one of my grandfathers. By that time, my grandfather was out of the taxi business, and he became a salesman. And he tried to sell various products. There was so many different products, and it was very tough. It was very tough.
And what was your mother doing?
My mother then started to work.
Yeah.
When Michael was not there, he was away at school, and I was not there. I was someplace else. I didn't need anybody to watch me. She worked at an office first, and then she worked at a card store, Mr. Goldman's card store, and she was very good, very efficient. And I think those were the years of the Vietnam War when she worked there. Worked very hard.
Yeah.
And she really brought in the bacon.
Yeah. Yeah.
That we were kosher. So we only eat bacon when we went out, my mother and I.
Yeah.
We couldn't wait to get out of the house to eat the bacon sandwiches.
But amazing that, yeah, your father somehow was able to afford tuition at
I don't
University of
think he
Vermont.
did. I think they might have gotten the money from Aunt Nettie. I have a feeling they
Yeah.
did.
How did your mother's family feel about Reuben? Did they like him when he first started coming around, or?
When he was best friends with my Uncle Henry, okay? Henry was my mother's brother. And Ruby was the funniest guy around. He just made everybody laugh. He did crazy things, such as one New Year's Eve, really cold, bitter cold, snowing. Unbeknownst to anybody, he got out of his clothes, put on a diaper, he had pants on, underpants on, a diaper, said welcome 1929, the year 1929, stood out on the windowsill, knocked on the window. Mind you, they were up seven, and where's Ruby, where's Ruby? Suddenly they hear a knocking on the window, and they scream with laughter. They're dying of laughter. It's the funniest thing. You know what my grandmother said?
Uh-uh.
My grandmother did not think he was very funny. And she said, I would laugh too, except the fool belongs to us. My father and my grandmother did not get along.
And why do you think that is?
She didn't think that he provided for her daughter.
So, after secretarial school, what was your first job?
After secretarial school, my first job, they place you. Katherine Gibbs would place you. I got a job with Goodson Todman. Oh, Kevin.
Yeah, they were like a production team.
They were TV productions, but the game shows.
Yeah.
Like What's My Line.
Yeah.
And other things. And I got a job with Howard Todman, who was the business manager. Howard Todman and the other Goodson, and Mark Goodson and Howard Todman. And I got a job with him. But then Alan Sherman, who was a producer, needed somebody And so I went over, also in the same office, I went over and worked for Alan Sherman, who was known for the song Hello Mother, Hello Father,
Right.
and,
Here I am in
yeah,
Canada.
and yeah, and he was one of the producers also of one of the shows too. And he and Chester Feldman, who was under, so I worked with the two of them. But I had told my friends from Katherine Gibbs how much money. They said, how much money are you making? And I think it was $45 a week. And they said, well, how come you're making so much? So a few of them called Katherine Gibbs up. And they said, we're only making 29 or 30. How come she got a job and you placed her at a job where she could make so much more than we could? So Katherine Gibbs called up Howard Todman. And she said, I know we placed her, but it is a bit much. He said, we think that Rhoda is worth it. That was the end of the conversation. So I worked there. I worked there for maybe 1 or 2 years. The show closed that I was working on. And a really nice man who worked at Goodson Todman said, would you be interested in working for Eleanor Kilgallen, who is Dorothy Kilgallen's sister? Now, Dorothy Kilgallen was a very well-known TV personality, and she wrote a column for one of the newspapers. She was very well known, and this was her sister I would be working for at a company called MCA, Music Corporation of America. They were agents in the TV, in all phases of entertainment. TV, theater,
Yeah.
books, musical comedy, dramatic TV. Now, her department, Eleanor Kilgallen's department, was dramatic TV. And she and a woman by the name of Mooney James were the head of that department. And I became secretary to Eleanor Kilgallen.
Okay.
And then a woman by the name of, a girl by the name of Jane Oliver was secretary to Monique James. And we had, the offices were beautiful. It was at 598 Madison Avenue. And we'd walk into the building, go into the elevator, and the elevator was pine paneled with beautiful English hunting prints on the walls of the elevator.
Yeah.
And then Jane and I had our desks outside of the offices where Monique and Eleanor worked. They had two separate offices. And that's where I worked until I met Klaus. And we got married. I wasn't a real secretary. What I did for instance, one of the things that I did for them was that they would, let's say, call up Henry Morgan, who was a comedian. He wasn't a very funny one. He's more sarcastic than being funny. And he would say to me, Alan said, Rhoda, listen, why don't you just read this script? And there are a bunch of jokes that I have written, and let's see if Henry likes them. I read them. He didn't like any of them because I didn't have the timing or anything like that. So those are the things that I did. And I hardly even took my stenography, my shorthand and typing. I hardly ever did that.
Yeah.
I did all kinds of other things. So it was great. It was great.
But at this point, you were living on your own, correct?
Oh no, I lived with my parents.
You were still living.
I married.
Okay.
Oh yes.
Okay, so you're
Yes.
still living.
I didn't. $45 a week is, even then, wasn't that much money. I could never afford to live on my own.
Yeah.
I remember putting the money. When I got my paycheck, I would put it in the bank, and the next day I wouldn't have anything. I'd come back to the bank, and the tellers would say, "Here she is again," because I would put the money in. Then I said, "Oh God, I don't have anything." Then take it out the next day, then put it back in. It was difficult. So I had to live at home. I had to.
All right.